if Deedee really wanted the world to think that Gypsy could not eat, that Gypsy was bound by this feeding tube and that she couldn't eat, why did she film her eating royal mashed potatoes? Why did she take pictures of her sitting in front of food? There's a picture of her on an airplane that Deedee took where she's got her food in front of her. There's pictures of her at her birthday parties with cake in front of her. Why, if Deedee wanted to paint this picture that she could only use a feeding tube and she was bound by the feeding tube and that she couldn't eat at all, why did Deedee herself take pictures of her eating and put it out there for the public to see?
Okay, so welcome back, everyone. This is part two of our deep dive into Gypsy Rose Blanchard's medical records versus the claims she, Rod, and Christy have made over the years. In part one, we went through the first half of her records and saw that they tell a very different story than what Gypsy now alleges about her mom lying. I had not planned on splitting this video into two parts, but because of how long it was, I felt like I needed to. So we're going to be jumping right back into exactly where we left off in part one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more.
I think Deedee thought what was proven by medical documentation that she had difficulty swallowing, so much so that she could not get the nutrition that she needed to grow like effectively in the way that she needed to, right? So, under doctor recommendation, after being in the hospital for a month, being observed for a month and watched closely for a month by a feeding team, they said you're going to need a feeding tube. You can still eat a little bit, but you're not getting enough. And that's what happened. No evidence of aspiration or penetration, significant gagging and coughing with all consistencies. Please see speech pathology report for full details. This study was reviewed by Kelly Klein, MD, radiology resident by Adam Dowling, MD, radiology faculty. I reviewed the film and agree with the findings in this report. Dictated by, so this wasn't one person. This study was reviewed by Kelly. There was a radiology department. There was a whole test done. There were tests done to prove that she needed the feeding tube. While public narratives often focus on the worsening of Gypsy's condition, they rarely acknowledge that it worsened for both Gypsy and Deedee. Deedee was caring for a child with numerous health concerns, undergoing continuous diagnostic testing to identify the root cause. Meanwhile, Rod Blanchard's life was reportedly improving during this time, transitioning from the shrimp industry to working offshore as a shipmaster, a role associated with a significant higher pay. Whether the distance from daily caregiving was intentional or circumstantial remains a question for broader discussion. We have discussed it. It was intentional. Okay. Gypsy had her first ear tubes placed around the age of 4, coinciding with the birth of her half brother Dylan. Ear tube placements are common in young children with chronic ear infections, especially those with microdeletion syndrome, a chromosomal disorder associated with recurring infections, developmental delays, and feeding issues. Medical records confirm that Gypsy had multiple ear infections and perforations, so she had holes in her ears. Her last recorded ENT evaluation was February 2009 when removal of the ear tubes was recommended. Yeah, she has a half brother, Dylan. All right, otis mitis. That's an inner ear infection with a hole in her ear, is what that means, I think. Media or otis medius or something like that. That's an inner ear infection. And then it says barium swallow modified, swallowing difficulty. In interviews and documentaries, Gypsy has claimed my mother told the doctors I couldn't eat and that the feeding tube was a way to control what I'd eat. However, these statements are contradicted by her medical records, which clearly indicate she, Gypsy, was not able to consume enough calories by mouth to promote survival. This denotes insufficient calorie intake, not complete oral refusal, an important distinction. Moreover, medical records show that Gypsy could eat soft foods with favorites like mashed potatoes and pudding. Deedee even discussed trying different ways to make mashed potatoes more palatable, indicating a continued encouragement of oral intake alongside the feeding tube. How many ABUSIVE moms try to jazz up the mashed potatoes for their kid to eat them? Rod Blanchard's recollection that Gypsy could no longer eat solid food after the feeding tube placement, she couldn't have any physical hard foods. further contradicts his own claims that he took Gypsy to McDonald's. Medical documentation suggests that while Gypsy's oral intake was limited, it was not eliminated. The feeding tube was never intended to restrict Gypsy's eating. It was necessary to supplement her nutrition due to her growth failure, which is visually evident in photos from the time. Numerous photographs show Gypsy eating, often taken by the very person she accuses of falsely claiming she couldn't eat. Cast doubt on accusations of Deedee deliberately restricting food or fabricating the condition. Rather than evidence of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, the records show a mother adhering to medical advice to ensure her daughter received proper nutrition. Pediatric Express visit. This is an 11-year-old white female known to have muscular dystrophy of unknown developmental delay and asthma brought by her mom because of cold symptoms. Congestion, coughing for the past 4 days. Also, she had 1 day history of fever. She was seen at Children's Hospital on Monday for this problem. She was given, I don't know what that says, and she was given 2 medications. However, she did not improve and the cough persisted. And today, when the patient woke up, she coughed a blood-tinged greenish septum. So mother brought her into the emergency room to be evaluated. The patient has been having cold symptoms for the past 1 week. Appetite has decreased since yesterday, and today the patient refused to eat or drink. The mother was giving her feeding through her G tube. Patient activity is decreased today and no change in urination and no other active complaints reported. Okay. Although Dr. Robert Steele, a physician involved in Gypsy's care, later referred to the feeding tube as an unfortunate decision, records show he was the attending provider at the time of her feeding tube placement in September 2005. Moreover, a 2025 FOIA release revealed that Gypsy, long framed as a helpless victim of medical abusc, sold unused medical supplies, including feeding tubes, via eBay under a secret email account. This raises ethical and factual questions about the retrospective victim narrative. So that was interesting. So basically, you're supposed to go and have your tube changed out. Like, apparently, they would go to the ER and have it changed, but they were selling Gypsy, Deedee, somebody I don't know, was selling medical supplies, including the feeding tube. Gypsy's underlying medical condition, microdeletion syndrome, includes growth and feeding problems as known symptoms. A May 2004 letter from Quorum Healthcare confirms that enteral feeding and nutrition monitoring had been provided since 2000. By 2004, Gypsy was reportedly meeting 100% of U.S. dietary guidelines for vitamins, minerals, calories, and proteins. Although Gypsy had the stature of a 7-year-old at age 12, likely due to her then undiagnosed chromosome disorder, she was not malnourished. In that context, Dr. Steele, later called unfortunate, may in fact have been a medically successful intervention. Dr. John Udall, GI Nutrition, it says Quorum Healthcare continues to monitor the above patient on her enteral feedings as prescribed. Quorum has been providing enteral feedings and nutrition monitoring on Gypsy since July 2000. She has been on Pediasure 5 cans a day since this time, except for a trial of Peptamen 1.5 from February 15, 2001 to June 26, 2001. Enclosed is a copy of the enteral patient management flow sheet documenting this flow up process for the last 6 months by our home care representative. Gypsy's weight has shown a steady increase. Now, this is the woman that was trying to keep her daughter sick. However, she was keeping up with her feedings enough that Gypsy, once they got her on like a plan, figured out what was wrong. Okay, she's not getting enough intake from eating, getting her on the peg tube, feeding her through it, what she needed to eat, and how much she needed to eat to be fed through her tube. She started gaining weight. It says Gypsy's weight has shown a steady increase from 36, 7/21/2000 to present weight of 57. Her height has increased from 127 centimeters to 134 centimeters as well over the past 4 years. Her nutrition intake with 5 cans of Pediasure is 1,185 calories, 35 grams of protein, and 1,010 cc's free water. This provides 45 calories, 1.3 grams protein, and 39 cc's water. She is meeting 100% of the US RDA for vitamins and minerals, calories, and protein. Her assessed fluid needs are 1,554 cc's to 1,813 cc's. An additional 110 cc water or more is given per mother. Her IBW for height is 62. She plots below the third percentile for her age group with weight and height. Her weight and height age is that of a 7-year-old. An increase in free water to 100 cc's 5 times a day may be beneficial. The placement of the feeding tube in Gypsy Rose Blanchard was not the result of deception, exaggeration, or ABUSE. It was a medically warranted decision made by a team of professionals after appropriate evaluations. The available medical documentation, along with context from genetic disorders and nutritional data, support the conclusion that it was necessary and ultimately effective intervention. In Gypsy's 2024 memoir, My Time to Stand, she recounts how Deedee would tell her stories from her youth. Tales of beauty pageants, childhood glories, moments when Deedee felt truly special and pretty. This is wild. You guys, listen to this. Perfectly normal reminiscing, one might think. But Gypsy interprets it as Deedee fishing for adoration, grasping for attention, even trying to make her jealous. This is wild. Jealous of her mother's memories. Gypsy writes, it almost seemed as if she was trying to make me feel even smaller in my wheelchair, with no teeth, malnourished, androgynous, most of the time dressed as a boy. Let's address this. In fairness, Gypsy did have a face only a mother could love, and love it Deedee did. We'll even grant her no attractiveness part, inside and out. But now malnourished? No. Gypsy's early failure to thrive was likely the result of her chromosome disorder, not starvation. Once diagnosed, she gained and maintained a healthy weight for her small frame and final height of 4'11". And most of the time dressed as a boy? Not quite. Hundreds of images prove otherwise, many of them on her own site. Below, you'll find a small set of 2015 crime scene photos of her clothes, courtesy of Into the Weeds podcast, followed by images of Gypsy looking anything but malnourished. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, Gyps, but some people were just born evil. In Gypsy's prison emails released July 2025, we see a different obsession, her hair. She wrote about cutting it when stressed. This is so interesting, you guys. So in Gypsy's prison emails released July 2025, we see a different obsession, her hair. She wrote about cutting it when stressed, often after one of her many breakups with Ken Euchre. It's always been assumed that Deedee shaved Gypsy's head to mimic the look of a chemotherapy patient and create a boyish appearance. But now we are wondering if it might be tied to some sort of compulsive behavior in Gypsy herself. Wouldn't cutting her hair be a trauma trigger? Observing. Or just an observation. And look at this picture. I'm going to have to, hold on. It's really wild that, like, the whole situation with Gypsy's hair. And one of the big things when she got to prison is she wanted to let her hair grow because, her mom kept her hair cut. Her mom kept her hair cut. So she was really big on wanting to let her hair grow. And when she got out of prison, her hair was really long. When Ryan picked her up, her hair was really long. Since then, she has repeatedly messed with her hair, dyed it, cut it, so much so that she wears wigs now. Again, interesting that Deedee is clearly not here to make Gypsy need a wig, but Gypsy is back to the point to where she's wearing wigs because her hair. She's done chopped her hair off so much. Isn't that interesting? And there's also this illness, trichotillomania. I don't know if I'm saying it right. It's a mental health disorder where a person feels a strong urge to pull out their hair, often from the scalp, sometimes from the eyebrows, eyelashes, especially during stress, anxiety, boredom, or emotional distress. The fact that Gypsy herself says, like, oh, when I'm stressed, like, I want to cut my hair, girl, like maybe she has trichotillomania or whatever it's called. This is Gypsy literally now because she has cut her hair, pulled her hair, whatever you want to, whatever. So the fact that her mom's nowhere around, her mom's 6 feet under, and she, what, 2 years out of prison, she's cut her hair, dyed her hair, messed with it so much that she barely has any hair anymore. Makes you wonder, who is really keeping her head shaved bald? Was she pulling her hair, cutting her hair to the point where Deedee said, let's just shave your head? Because maybe if your head is shaved, you won't feel the need to pull or cut. Is that a possibility? I don't know. But it definitely makes you wonder now, right? Let's get back to it. Okay, here's the kicker. In a prison email dated May 24, 2019, Gypsy professed to miss the very mother she claimed tried to make me feel even smaller in my wheelchair with no teeth, malnourished, androgynous, with no attractiveness at all. So here's the clothes, crime scene photos of all the clothes that Gypsy had. I mean, reading Gypsy saying, like, oh, my mom dressed me like a boy. I'm like, what? Does she forget? Like, we've seen all these photos where she literally was never dressed like a boy. Gypsy claims, delivered with her trademark sinister overtones, that medication were put through her medieval weapon of torture, otherwise known as her feeding tube. In reality, that's a perfectly normal procedure. She goes further, insinuating that Deedee could have put anything through her tube while she was sleeping, ironically implying that nothing sinister happened while she was awake. But you don't just pour a liquid straight into a feeding tube. Deedee would have had to attach an extension set, a fiddly procedure to pull off without waking a sleeping child. In prison confessions, Gypsy seemed shocked when told about her medical records. Records she claimed she had read, where it stated that she had a fear of eating. It said, your medical records state you have a fear of eating. And she said, that's ridiculous. I mean, is that something that my mom said? No, it was something a team of feeding specialists said. When the interviewer confirms this, Gypsy doubles down. Wow, no, I never had a fear of eating. Again, medical professionals disagree, or might even, maybe not even a fear of eating, but a discomfort, a discomfort to the point that she was a little standoffish with eating because it was uncomfortable. Gypsy also claims she spent 6 months as an inpatient in a New Orleans children's hospital immediately after the feeding tube placement. Logic dictates if she didn't need the tube, she wouldn't have left 6 months later with one still in place. So, yet Gypsy herself says she spent 6 months in a hospital after the feeding tube was placed. But if she didn't need it, then they would have taken it out. Gypsy insists she had the feeding tube changed every 6 months until she was 24 years old. Interviewer said, so twice a year for 15 years? Gypsy, for 15 years. And she says each replacement was pretty painful because they don't put you under anesthesia. But here's the truth. Only one doctor, Dr. Steele, the same one who called her feeding tube an unfortunate decision, ever requested a replacement. The tube was not regularly maintained or replaced every 6 months as she claimed. According to her medical records, replacements only occurred when it became infected, and infections happened when Gypsy didn't clean it. We could list every date Gypsy had her feeding tube change. We could list every time she said she didn't need it. But it's more effective to let Gypsy dig her own hole. In fact, Gypsy was almost 24 years old the last time she had it replaced. Something we know from text messages to Nicholas Godejohn during his Greyhound trip to unalive Deedee. In those messages, she says she had just been to the ER for a replacement and it wouldn't need changing again at least for a year if it got infected. She even admits she could change it herself. Not once in those messages does she complain about the pain, question why she still has it, or say she wanted it removed. Yet in later interviews, she claimed she pleaded with Deedee, can we please get rid of the feeding tube? I don't need it. That was in Gypsy's Revenge 2018. In 2018, Gypsy stated, I knew I didn't need the feeding tube. If that's true, why was she planning on keeping it after Deedee's death? Why did she bring a spare one with her when fleeing the crime scene in 2015? Yes, when she entered prison, Gypsy was quick to have the tube removed and film herself doing it. That doesn't prove she was an innocent victim forced to use something she didn't need. It only proves she was happy to remove it after being charged with first degree unaliving. Darling, I'm gonna go to the ER to get my tube changed. I'll be off my phone for a few hours. It was a 6 hour wait in the ER. At least it's done, so we're good for a year. It can be done even by me, but I won't unless I have to. In 2017, Christy Blanchard puts on her best shocked face for the cameras in Mommy Dead and Dearest. When Gypsy's attorney and manager, Mike Stanfield, tells her about a doctor's 2007 suspicion that Gypsy might be the victim of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, Christy gasped, "What? Unfreaking believable." And it would have kept going because her mama was insane, a compulsive liar. But here's the thing, Christy herself had told Mike Stanfield about that suspicion 2 years earlier. So what's with the theatrics? And yes, you heard that right. Christy Blanchard, of all people, accusing someone else of being an insane, compulsive liar. This is from the same Christy who, in 2018, confidently told Ozarks First she, Gypsy, does have a lazy eye if she doesn't wear her glasses all the time. That was since she was a little baby. Everything else was a lie. Not everything, Christy. Suloxone drops and cotton were placed in her ear canal. The patient tolerated the procedure well, and the patient then had the dental restoration performed by Dr. Bullard, who will be dictating his part of the procedure. Dr. Evelyn Kluko was present and available for the procedure. So, Dr. Bullard, Dr. Evelyn, dictated by Dr. Jason Hunt. There's 3 doctors on this form right here alone. Gypsy's own medical records confirm a condition both she and Gypsy deny, asthma. When Aaron Lee Carr asked Gypsy and Mommy Dead and Dearest, "What illness did your mom say you had?" Gypsy includes asthma in a list of made up conditions, but her medical records tell a different story. Over a decade of appointments for asthma and food allergies, with her last visit as late as November 26, 2013, when she was 22 years old. If asthma and rhinitis were made up, why did doctors spend more than 10 years treating her for them? Back in 2004 and 2005, Gypsy attended sleep clinics monitored by trained medical staff where mild asthma and controlled rhinitis were recorded, not by Deedee, but by medical specialists. Who exactly are the insane compulsive liars now? In countless documentaries and interviews, Rod and Christy Blanchard solemnly recall when they say Deedee told them about Gypsy's short life expectancy. Rod said in Mommy Dead and Dearest, "Deedee told me she's not going to live to be, 18 years old. She may be an old teenager, but that's about it." I was like, really? It was shocking. It was disturbing. 18. Okay, 18. Rod in Mother Knows Best, "Deedee told me she's not going to live to be 20 years old." Now 20. Christy in the Prison Confessions, when Gypsy was around 8 years old, Deedee called one day and said she was diagnosed with leukemia and wouldn't live beyond the age of 12. 12. So which is it? 12, 18, or 20? Medical records show Deedee first told doctors Gypsy had leukemia when she was 5 years old, specifically acute lymphocytic leukemia. A 2007 record notes remission 10 years. Another lists the word chemotherapy. But without access to pre-made 2000 records, we can't prove or disprove Deedee's claims. FOIA files released by Into the Weeds podcast in April 2005 include a 2015 crime scene image of a handwritten document, likely by Deedee, listing Gypsy's alleged conditions. She is confined to a wheelchair, must be fed through a tube, suffers from asthma, epilepsy, Faultman's anemia, a form of leukemia. She is vision and hearing impaired, microcephalic, and developmentally delayed. Faultman's anemia? That doesn't exist. Fanconi anemia, if I'm saying that right, does. It is a rare inherited disorder that increases cancer risk and causes bone marrow failure, sometimes treated with a bone marrow transplant. Melissa Moore, co author of Gypsy's 2024 book, Confessions on the Eve of Freedom and My Time to Stand, and executive producer of Gypsy Rose Life After Lockup and Prison Confessions, claims she found documentation of a bone marrow transplant in Gypsy's medical records. Care to share, Miss Moore? The records we were told were destroyed in Hurricane Katrina. If you have them, why haven't we seen them? And if you don't, why say you do? We can't say with certainty that Gypsy had Fanconi anemia, but perhaps Melissa Moore can. The ball's in your court, Miss Moore. We expect you to leave it there. In several records, Deedee mentions a 2001 car accident in which she almost severed her foot and sustained a head injury, allegedly resulting in memory problems. True, maybe. There are points in the records where she says she can't remember all of Gypsy's illnesses or when they began. Thank you, Sarah. And in all fairness, Gypsy did have a laundry list of legitimate health problems and some clearly diagnosed, others more ambiguous. Awful for the patient, yes, but it fell entirely on Deedee to manage them while also searching for answers. Rod was nowhere to be found. It's not hard to imagine it was overwhelming. Gypsy's date of birth does shift in the records, sometimes 1991, sometimes 1992, sometimes 1995. In one instance, two different birth dates appear on two separate medical records from the same day, April 4th, 2007. But there's no discernible pattern here. Nothing suggests deliberate deception, as much as the Gypsy train would love to think otherwise. So, screenshots of select med records show that Gypsy really had leukemia. Gypsy lives with her 30-year-old mother. Father was a drug abuser, according to mom, and is not involved in Gypsy's life. And that is true. It could just be sloppy documentation. I can't tell you how many times I've been on the phone with like a doctor's office and I'm giving them my birthday. My birthday's 1987. And they say 1997? And I'm like, no, 1987. Not 97, 87. And they're like, oh, okay. So right here it says leukemia remission 10 years. Oh my goodness. Get my notes. All right. Gypsy Rose diagnosis epilepsy. This she was taking medicine. Vision impaired. Okay, epilepsy. Possible. Vision impaired. Yep. Hearing impaired. Yep. GI reflux. Yep. Quadriplegia. And muscular dystrophy. Anemia, hypoventilation, asthma, allergies, mild mental. I'm not going to say that R word. Leukemia, lung disease, heart murmur, which I did see paperwork that proves she had a heart murmur. Evidence of that. Lung disease would be the asthma. So, according to Rod Blanchard's second wife, Christy, Gypsy attended school for only a short time. When Gypsy was old enough to attend school, she was excited. I don't even think she went the whole year. Christy said that in Prison Confessions. Christy says Deedee pulled Gypsy out because she was afraid they wouldn't give her medication right. But the more likely explanation, Deedee chose to homeschool Gypsy for legitimate reasons, among them her many health conditions. One of Deedee's friends recalls that as a teenager, Gypsy could read the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy and discuss the symbolism in the films. Great job, Deedee. There's literally a video of Gypsy. She's so little, like, I don't know, maybe a year old. And Deedee's like, I love you. And she's like drinking a bottle and she's like, where's your cranium? And Gypsy points to her head and she's like, where's your something else? And she like does like this. And it's like another, like, I guess like the medical term for your arms or something. But it wasn't where's your arms. It was like, where's your, I'm not sure. And I'm like, I still don't know what that is. I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know what it is. But Gypsy owes her fingers. Gypsy was like not even a year old. And Deedee is teaching her like where her cranium is, where her fingers said in a different way, a different language. So I'm like, this woman clearly seemed to put a lot of time into her kid. Yet the public story shifts. In 2017, Dr. Phil asked Gypsy if she remembers going to school. Gypsy says, I never went to school. Dr. Phil, did you ever go to kindergarten? No, sir. At Gypsy's pretrial hearing on July 5th, 2016, she answered differently. The judge asked, how far did you go in school? Gypsy, about second grade. Perhaps Dr. Mark Philman and Dr. Phil might like to diagnose that contradiction. In March 2025, a sharp-eyed Reddit user spotted a detail. The dress Gypsy wears in one photograph matches the school uniform at Holy Rosary Catholic School in La Rose, not far from where Rod lived. That right there. She's wearing like a school uniform. The handwritten document mentioned earlier, the one listing Gypsy's supposed health conditions, also claims Rod abandoned Deedee and Gypsy shortly after Gypsy's birth, contributing nothing financially. It goes further, alleging Rod refused to pay for homeschooling because Deedee insisted on Christian teachings, which he opposed. While we can't prove the claims outright, court records, covered later, confirm that Deedee did take Rod to court for child support, unpaid alimony, and medical expenses. And yes, Deedee was a grifter, but deadbeat dad Rod might want to ask himself why. Not content with implying Deedee denied Gypsy an education, Rod also claims Deedee wouldn't allow him alone time with his daughter. She wouldn't even leave me alone with her for an hour or anything. So she was with her all the time. Could that have anything to do with Rod's substance abuse issues? The same one Christy revealed to Fancy Michelle, earning her a scolding from Rod for talking about it? Mothers keep their sick kids close. It's called maternal instincts. And no sensible parent, whether the child has medical needs or not, would leave them in the care of someone with a history of alcohol and substance abuse issues. Deedee couldn't win. Damned if she did, damned if she didn't. Now we know why she didn't. We got you, Deedee. In December 2023, Gypsy shifted her story yet again, claiming she only ever attended kindergarten. That was on My Time to Stand. In a prison email dated May 31st, 2020, Rod told Gypsy he was disappointed to learn that her then boyfriend and now current partner, Ken Euchre, had used Coca Cola. Rod also admitted he did his fair share of drugs in his younger years. We can only wonder how much of that shaped Deedee's choice. Michelle Dean, an executive producer of the hit 2019 Hulu drama The Act, had already stumbled on the real truth of this story back in 2016. In her BuzzFeed article of August 19, 2016, she wrote, She, Deedee, explained the increasingly bewildering array of problems that Rod by saying that Gypsy had a chromosomal defect. Many of Gypsy's health issues, she claimed, stemmed from that one thing. Dean framed it as a claim. It wasn't. Deedee was telling the truth. But fame, fortune, and selective storytelling proved far more valuable than the truth. And the truth was the first casualty. For the record, Christy Blanchard does not approve of the act. Like Christy Blanchard, really does not approve of the act. In an April 4, 2019 interview with Kenny Hertz from Bulger, Christy said, When we first talked about the act, she, Michelle Dean, had told me she was going to talk to the producers because she wanted us to be included. She called me a couple of days after the fact and said the producers, and she didn't say who they were, didn't want us to interact because I might tell whoever's playing our parts, oh, you're walking wrong. And I'm like, seriously? And we're like, seriously? Christy hadn't been involved in most of Gypsy's life. Why would she be included in telling it? Or worse, put herself forward as some bottomless well of insight. Christy went on. She, Michelle Dean, told me that whatever she made, it didn't matter what it was, she was going to send up 50% of what she made and she was going to keep 50%. And then a couple of days later, she told me she talked to the producers and they didn't want to interact with us. When asked why she even wanted to be deeply involved in yet another televised retelling of the case, Christy gave the noble sounding answer that it was about getting the whole truth out there. We're not going to fabricate anything. And if Gypsy's truth can save a life, then it's worth it. And she wants the truth out there. The irony. The whole truth is exactly what Gypsy herself would have least wanted out there. What Christy seemed to want was not the truth, it was the money. In 2019, Gypsy released a statement from prison. I am unable to watch the act. However, I feel it's very unfair and unprofessional that producers and co-producer Michelle Dean have used my actual name and my story without my consent, and the life rights to do so. Therefore, there will be legal action taken against the show's producers. I want to share my story and bring awareness to Munchausen by proxy. No child should ever be a BUSED, especially from their parent. Have people lost their minds? This is Deedee Blanchard's story. Deedee is no longer in a position to assert life rights to anything told about her. Why should the person who planned, orchestrated, and participated in her murder be able to profit off the act? You don't see Nicholas go to John demanding payment every time his story is told incorrectly. Gypsy's many diagnosed health issues entitled Deedee to Social Security and disability benefits, on top of whatever, if anything, Rod was actually paying in child support. Rod says, I promised her, Deedee, I would always pay her child support along with alimony and cover all medical expenses and health insurance for Gypsy. I paid Deedee until the day that she died. This was in Gypsy's revenge. We think Rod Blanchard should now be barred from using the word promise. Because where's the proof? Are we really supposed to believe that a father was paying child support for his 23-year-old adult daughter and alimony to his ex wife for almost 25 years? The only evidence comes from a scrap of paper shown top right, which could have been written by anyone at any time. Actual evidence tells a different story. Deedee had to take Rod to court for unpaid child support, unpaid alimony, and unpaid medical bills. Court records show he was on his final warning to appear, facing possible jail time if he didn't. Rod claims he paid $1,200 a month in child support. Christie's close friend puts it at around $1,000. The real number? Official court documents show $250 per month. The same records reveal Rod owed $1,300 in back alimony and thousands more in unpaid medical expenses for Gypsy. And the award for Father of the Year goes to absolutely not Rod Blanchard. Oh my goodness. Medicaid covered most of Gypsy's care, but Deedee expected Rod to pay what Medicaid couldn't. Rod claimed he'd offered to put Gypsy on his private health plan, but were somehow meant to believe Deedee, who monetized everything she could, refused this golden opportunity. Rod also claims Deedee scammed him out of $150,000 between unnecessary medical expenses and child support before she turned 18. Let's hope Rod and Christy managed to claw back some of those scam dollars by exploiting Deedee's brutal unaliving. And least we not forget, Rod was also taken to court for failing to pay child support for his second daughter, Nicolette. One wonders what Christy has to say about that. FOIA documents obtained by Mayra R71 in June 2025 confirmed Deedee and Gypsy were both receiving disability benefits from SSA at the time of Deedee's murder. Initially, SSA planned a joint disability fraud investigation. After Deedee's death, they closed the case against her, but when asked about pursuing Gypsy, they declined. The reason? Gypsy was not the one who made the application. Once again, adult Gypsy sidestepped the consequences. Rod told Dr. Phil, the relation it did a 180, and we started fighting. Well, not fighting, but she just kind of hounded me down, taking me back and forth to child support court or taking me back and forth for child support. I tried supporting her financially the best I could, which I guess to her it was never enough. So she was taking me to court for additional medical bills. The court ordered that I be obligated to provide. Exactly. It wasn't Deedee being spiteful. It was a judge ordering Rod to pay for the care of his sick daughter that he abandoned. What would Rod have preferred? Deedee to just roll over and die? Well, guess what? She did. In a March 15, 2023 prison email, Gypsy wrote that Deedee worked in a bar when Gypsy was a toddler and later did odd jobs like photo restoration. Odd, considering Rod allegedly supported Deedee until the day that she died. About $2,800 per month in 2025 plus Social Security and food stamps. That's a comfortable living for a single mom. We don't know many mothers who leave a sick child to pull pints unless money was tight. Screenshots of select court records show that Rod paid child support. There's Nicolette, contempt of court for him being behind. In Mother's Knows Best, 2017, Gypsy says she was around 7 years old when she got into a motorcycle accident with her grandfather, Claude Sr. She says she scraped her knee. Deedee took her to the hospital and she was given a wheelchair. According to Gypsy, Deedee told her it would be forever. Fast forward to 2024. The story has evolved. Now Gypsy claims she was like 5 years old when the accident happened and that Deedee turned it into a bigger event than it was. This time, her leg was put into a brace. In another 2024 interview, Gypsy recalls her mother simply wheeling in a wheelchair one day and bluntly ordering her to use it. In her 2024 memoir, My Time to Stand, she repeats the age 5 version. That's already two different accounts. But under oath at Nicholas Godejohn's 2018 trial, Gypsy told the judge she's been in a wheelchair since probably about 8 years old. According to the new post-prison Gypsy, the wheelchair arrived a full 2 years before the accident ever happened. One event, 3 different ages, good Lord. We like to say you couldn't make this up, but apparently Gypsy Rose Blanchard can. Rod Blanchard isn't much clearer either. In 2018, he says he first saw Gypsy in a wheelchair at age 7 and knew she could still walk. I would ask Deedee, what's wrong with her legs? She told me muscular dystrophy. That's a terrifying thing to hear about your child. A year later, Rod sounds less certain. I heard from a family member that Gypsy could walk, and I was confused. But the relationship was so fragile. I didn't do my due diligence. By 2024, in a TikTok Live with Fancy, Rod's memory slips again. Fancy. When was the last time you saw your daughter walk? Right. She was probably 3 or 4 years old. Fancy. So from 3 years old, you never saw her walk? Right. Not that I recall. Not that he recalls. A father who can't remember if his daughter last walked at 3, 4, or 7. There's even a photo of Rod Deedee and a very much upright, unassisted Gypsy at the age of 7. That might help jog the old absent father's memory. I didn't write this, you guys. Somebody else did, but here's Gypsy. She's here's me standing up. As for why he never saw visitation rights, Rod shrugged. I was busy working, life, you know. To the dads who put their kids ahead of life, you know, we salute you. Bobby Petrie, Deedee's nephew and serial tattoo parlor promoter, also weighed in. We all knew she could walk. We played, we'd hang out. Deedee would tell her that her legs were going to give her trouble or that they collapse, and she'd go soak them into the tub. As far as how old Gypsy was when he last saw her walk, Bobby had his own creative timeline. First, it was 8 years old, then 7, then 4. Bobby Petrie has been chasing media attention long before Deedee's murder. The chance he's been waiting for finally arrived in 2015. Hello, my name's Bobby Petrie, and I was Deedee Blanchard's favorite nephew. No, Bobby, we won't back off. Bobby in 2017. I wish Deedee would come back to life so I could unalive that witch as slow as possible. Jeez. Bobby in 2019. She was pretty effing crazy. She deserved to. That is wild. For the record, movement disorders for muscle stiffness or weakness can be symptoms of a chromosomal disorder, and one medical record dated August 23rd, 2000 suggests the motorcycle accident may have happened when Gypsy was 9 years old, but in a family where no one can keep their lives straight, who can say? So here it says 9 years old, put motor vehicle accident, right knee pain, pending findings, AP and lateral view on the right knee, demonstrate no fracture or dislocation, the Sonora. So that seems to be when the accident happened. So she would have been 9 years old. In some interviews, Rod Blanchard remembers Deedee as the best mom in the world. There's no way I could do what you're doing. You have a sick child, is constantly 24/7 taking care of her, always praised her, told her, you're doing a good job. In others, the tone changes entirely. All the visits, Deedee had to be there the whole time. Something never felt right about it. Deedee was so controlling. Firstly, there's no way I can do what you're doing is not what the mother of a sick child wants to hear from someone who allegedly wants to spend time alone with their child. Secondly, this was during Rod's own rug and alcohol years. Maybe it wasn't Deedee that never felt right. Christy Blanchard echoes the great mother version. We thought, great mom, taking care of Gypsy. I told Rod so many times. I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she does it. We never saw the red flags. June 16, 2015, just days after Deedee's body was found, Christy introduces herself on Facebook as Gypsy's grieving stepmother and tagged a local news station in a post. She hadn't seen Gypsy in 11 years. What? Oh, Gypsy. This is January 28, 2019. Okay, my supporters, I need a favor. I would like for all of you to go find Lifetime on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and tell them your thoughts and how wrong that was portrayed. Go under the post of Love You to Death and emphasize on how wrong this was made. Christy Blanchard. They are making people think that Gypsy knew her mom had Munchausen by proxy when she had no clue. This will help get some justice for Gypsy. Thanks in advance. Somebody commented, just look at the stepmother's page. She posted that she was grieving and tagged, yes, I said tagged, a local television station. She wants the attention. Secondly, she didn't join in on the current discussion we were having at the time. She announced it on a post, as if she walked into a room and demanded all to look towards her. The family member who are grieving are doing just fine. Not following these posts and hitting the like button of anyone who expresses sympathy for their pitiful little self. This is classic enabling, and I'm almost at the point to believe you would defend the murderer over the victim in any case. Another comment, this is such BS. I won't ever forget when she first joined and her post was, I'm the stepmom, or something along those lines. She brought herself into this and continues to do so. This isn't something that's happening to them as much as she obviously wants it to be. It's a fact that Gypsy's dad never filed for visitation or took any legal action against Deedee when they claim she kept Deedee from them. That, coupled with her constantly trying to be in the mix all over social media, makes her really effing unlikable. They're not getting harassed. They're getting mad that people want answers to questions that she wasn't ready for. In 2017, when Gypsy was asked to describe Deedee in one word, she did not use the word ABUSIVE. She laughed and said, unique? This is something that I thought did not make sense. This woman chained you to a bed. First off, you said you wasn't allowed to have a computer or a phone. You used your mom's and it was limited, but now these videos are coming out. Then you tell a story of like, oh, when I ran away and she came and got me, she brought me home and she smashed my laptop and my phone. She smashed my laptop and my phone. So what happened to I wasn't allowed to have a phone. I had to use hers and it was limited to now all of a sudden she smashed your laptop and your phone. And for someone that was chained to a bed and forced to do all these things to say you don't describe your mother as that word. Oh, unique. That just, it's weird. Pressed again, she tried a little overprotective. Still not this word. A year later, she admitted, when I was younger, it was a lot better. Just because she was like my best friend. We used to do things together all the time movies, park, the zoo. And who was it who gave Gypsy those happy childhood memories? The one constant person in her life, her mother, Deedee Blanchard. The grass wasn't greener, Gyp. On June 9th, 1997, Deedee's beloved mother, Emma, died at the age of 59. Her brother, Evan, recalled, when my mom passed away, Deedee took it hard. Her world came crumbling down. Bobby Petrie offered his own diagnosis. I think ever since my grandmother died, Deedee kind of went off the deep end. A friend who said Deedee and Emma adored each other posted after Deedee's unaliving that Emma's death triggered a mental collapse. But Laura Petrie, Claude Petrie's second wife, painted a darker picture. She accused Deedee of neglecting her ailing mother. When Emma was sick, Deedee left her dirty and asking for food. That's evil. Christy Blanchard took this a step further, accusing Deedee of unaliving her own mother by starving her. In 2024, while filming them visit Emma's grave, Christy recounted the day her mom died, Deedee was in the house, starving her. I asked Deedee's sister, do you think Deedee had anything to do with your mom's death? And she said, now I wonder. That's how evil she was. Isn't it wild they didn't know that she was evil at all? Like, they didn't know she was evil at all. They're just going off word of mouth. Deedee, like, oh, she's such a great mom. I don't know how she does it. Rise, like, she's such a great mom. I don't know how she does it. But then she dies. They believe everything that Gypsy says. And then all of a sudden, it's like, that's how evil she was. That's how evil she was? But you guys thought she was great. You didn't fight for custody of your child, but that's how evil she was? Arguably, the word evil could also apply to monetizing a graveside visit for the cameras. No medical evidence has ever supported Christie's accusations. No police report has ever been filed. No doctor ever raised concern. No coroner found the death suspicious. And yet, 27 years later, Christie confesses she has doubts. If Emma truly had been starved, would none of Deedee's 5 siblings nor Claude have noticed or intervened? Even Gypsy spoke of her grandmother with affection. In a prison email dated August 10, 2019, she wrote with tenderness, making no mention of foul play. Less than 2 years later, another email suggested Emma might have purposely made Deedee sick as a child, mirroring what Deedee allegedly did to Gypsy. Where did the respect go, Gypsy? Straight out the window, alongside the promise of a book deal. So, even when Gypsy got out of prison, though, she went to Emma's graveside. She's like, oh, Mama Emma, this is my husband, Ryan. You would have loved him. I'm sorry. You're probably disappointed in me, Mama. But then she claims that Emma made Deedee sick, too. Claude Sr., Deedee's dad, married Laura May, a hospital housekeeper, about a year after Emma's death. Let's just say it had been on the cards for quite a while. Quite a while. Bobby Petrie sets the stage. Deedee was very upset about that happening. Christy Blanchard, still no blood relation to anyone central to the story, adds her dramatic flair. Deedee had a vengeful side. If she wanted to do something to you, she went for the jugular. In Christy's case, we sincerely hope so. It's just so wild to me. It's like all of a sudden, it's like, oh, she had an evil side, and it's like, but you guys didn't even fight for custody. If she had, and you guys praised her as a mom, I don't know. Laura Petrie claimed Deedee was putting some poison, allegedly weed killer, Roundup, in my food. The same thing she had put in the plant. This is on Mommy, Dad, and Dearest. Claude Sr. backed her up. She stayed in bed 9 months after that. She couldn't get up. I didn't think she was going to make it. According to Claude, Gypsy later told him Deedee was putting vitamins in Laura's food. Vitamins that conveniently was actually weed killer. Gypsy, aged 7 or 8 at the time, added from prison. Deedee hated Laura. It would be in her character to do that. That's an incredible statement coming from an actual convicted murderer. Bobby Petrie, moonlighting as both coroner and psychiatrist, declared of Laura's 2018 death. I guarantee you it had something to do with the poisoning from that Roundup. A decade after Deedee allegedly poisoned Laura, Bobby claims that Deedee, who's been dead for all these years, Deedee had been dead for 3 years before Laura's death. He claims Deedee putting weed killer in Laura's food allegedly killed Laura 3 years after Deedee was already dead. Okay. A decade after the alleged poisoning, 3 years after Deedee was even dead, a very slow death indeed. Bobby also provided a no doubt psychological profile of an aunt he hadn't seen in 17 years. Real weird girl. I would think she's bipolar, no doubt. Multiple personalities, perhaps. Definitely an evil person. For context, Bobby was born in 1976. He was 16 when Gypsy was born. For him to have formed such hard and fast diagnosis, he'd have to spend several formative years hanging around Deedee and her young daughter. Spoiler, he didn't. Christy Blanchard would later admit Emma and Laura hated each other, further conceding Laura wasn't exactly a saint. According to Christy, Laura once stole a photo of Deedee's hospital locker, cut Deedee's face into pieces, threw them away, and blamed it for Christy. And people wonder why Deedee moved from Louisiana. In a 2024 podcast, Gypsy claimed, my mother suffered from a lot of mental illnesses. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. She used to say she heard voices and saw shapes. There is no record of Deedee ever being diagnosed with any mental illnesses. If there were, the Blanchards would have paraded it out years ago. As with the allegations over Emma's death, no police reports were ever filed to back up the claim that Deedee tried to murder Laura. Surely the doctors treating Laura during her 9 months in bed or the coroner after her passing would have noticed signs of poisoning. That's two people now that Deedee allegedly tried to. And yet, Rod and Christy Blanchard were perfectly content to let her raise Rod's child, and largely without their involvement. Why? Because Deedee Blanchard never tried to unalive anyone. Gypsy claims she was about 9 years old when Laura Petrie threw her and Deedee out of the house she shared with Laura and Claude. After Deedee allegedly tried to murder Laura, Claude's, Claude's former mistress. Sorry, current wife. According to Gypsy, this eviction gave Deedee free range to create new illnesses for me, put me on more medication, and make things worse. What a load of baloney. Gypsy was 15 when she actually left Louisiana. Rod lived in Louisiana. In her 2024 memoir, I didn't write this, so I'm not accountable for anything memoir, because now she says, like, oh, I didn't write that. Like, a lot of things are wrong. I'm going to have to rewrite it. Now the eviction supposedly happened because Deedee's eldest brother and his family felt they had more right to Emma's old home than her favorite child. That sounds far more Petrie than poison. Rod's version is a slow trip. First Thibodeau, 45 minutes away, then New Orleans, a couple of hours. As she and Gypsy got older, they moved further and further away. It got harder and harder to see her. I'd go visit, spend a couple of hours, we start building a little bond, then it would be 3 or 4 months before we could see each other again. 3 or 4 months between visits says plenty about Rod's priorities. Here's pictures of them visiting, though. Rod offers two explanations for Deedee's move. To stop him from bonding with Gypsy, it was like Deedee was never letting us build that father-daughter relationship, and to hide the ABUSC. There was nobody there to question that anymore. There wasn't much questioning going on before they moved. Maybe because there was nothing to question. Or maybe just because maybe Deedee was escaping a different problem entirely. In a 2025 TikTok Live, Christy Blanchard let something slip. We didn't know she, Deedee, had a police report on Rod in Missouri. In fear. When I read that she left Louisiana because she was in fear of her ex-husband, I told the cops. That should have been my name on there, because her and I got into it all the time. A police report against Rod? Frequent blow-ups with Christy? Suddenly, Deedee's relocation makes more sense. Here's a picture. This is Deedee, Rod, Gypsy, Dylan, and Mia. So Rod and three of his kids and Deedee. Rod also claims Deedee turned Gypsy against him, citing a McDonald's trip where she was so scared of me she was shaking. Funny, photos of them together show a smiling Gypsy, not a trembling one. If she shook at all, it might have been from seeing Rod's own battered-looking face. Why does he have like a big old black eye and big puffy chin right there? I don't know. Rod, I did the best I could, narrative doesn't hold. The first 5 years were hard. They lived locally, not far. We did some visits. Then the royal we slips in. We always stayed in communication, physical visits. They moved when Gypsy was 9. Rod was already absent long before Deedee and Gypsy left town. His real bonding phase didn't begin until Gypsy was 23, under media spotlight and paid interviews. After Deedee's murder, neighbors saw Rod and Christy emptying Deedee and Gypsy's home. Claudia and Dorla apparently approved of this until they realized what little they got. A friend of Deedee's sister reported Rod and Christy came with a U-Haul and got what they wanted for Gypsy. Claudia got a moo and a picture. That's it. Christy insists she only took Gypsy's belongings and things they had bought for her. But if it wasn't a lot, why the U-Haul? Souvenirs, trophies, evidence, like vultures at a carcass, all of them. And in December 2024, Gypsy quietly rewrote the eviction story again. This time she was 5, not 9, and it was not Claude Sr.'s house, but Deedee's brother Claude's house. Screenshot Facebook users reporting Rod and Christy clearing out Deedee's house. That's so weird that, like, they didn't have anything, like, not a lot. Like, they talked a little bit, but he had not seen Gypsy in so long. But, like, as soon as everything happens, they're out there cleaning the house out. Christy says, some things we gave to the churches, the neighbors, and Goodwill. We took home what Gyp wanted, which was pictures and things we bought her. Other than that, we gave it all away. Nothing was left except the hospital bed in the house after 2 days of cleaning it out. In a letter presented to the court during one of Gypsy's pre-trial hearings, Deedee's sister admits she always knew that Gypsy could walk. Even here, the account starts to split. Dorla describes an afternoon where Deedee left Gypsy in the family's care to run to the store. The moment Deedee was out of sight, Gypsy supposedly leapt up out of her chair and began bouncing on the trampoline. Spotting Deedee's return, Dorla says Gypsy collapsed like a rag doll. Dorla claims that Deedee marched over, yelled at Gypsy, yanked her off the trampoline, bundled her up in the car, and drove away before we could ask her any questions. Because, of course, asking questions is apparently the rarest sport in this family. Deedee's brother Evan also remembers the trampoline episode, but in a different version. Deedee simply said, "Don't you know she's crippled?" To which Evan replied, "We've all seen different." Then he says Deedee put Gypsy back in the wheelchair and rolled her into the house for the rest of the day. So Darla sees a dramatic getaway in a car. Evans sees a quiet roll back into the living room. Same incident, different movie. Can anyone in this family keep a story straight for more than 30 seconds? Dorla also recalls a surprise visit from Deedee and 9-year-old Gypsy while Dorla and her sister Claudia were on a beach vacation. Deedee, claiming Gypsy had no feeling in her legs, let Claudia carry her piggyback along the sand. Later, when Deedee popped out for clothes, Gypsy allegedly began jumping from bed to bed, stopping cold when Deedee returned. And again, nobody asked a thing. We have a question, though. On May 3rd, 2024, coincidentally, Deedee's birthday, Gypsy gave a beachside interview claiming she had never been to the beach, ever. Her sisters would beg to differ. The photographic evidence disagrees too. We have the beach she didn't visit on a family trip, the other beach she didn't visit on another trip, the beach Deedee's friend definitely didn't take her to, where Gypsy definitely didn't make sand angels. In 2024, Gypsy also claimed she had never been on a swing. We've got multiple childhood photos to say otherwise. It's so crazy to lie about just like, I've never been to the beach. I've never been on a swing. Laura Petrie paints the picture of Deedee as a fugitive on the run. The minute she'd have set foot on the bayou, the law would have arrested her. She had made bad checks in Slidell, bad checks in New Orleans. Her father, Claude, adds for good measure. No matter where she went, she was doing all kinds of stuff. The family chorus doesn't stop there. Dorla pushes the outlawed Deedee Blanchard narrative further. She wasn't a stranger to the law. She shoplifted. She was always wanted for writing bad checks. She stole from many people. She would get so many credit cards and then eat my dead mother's name and run up bills like crazy. She get up so many credit cards in her mom's name is what it was supposed to say. She would get so many credit cards and then eat my dead mother's name and run the bill up like crazy. In. She was going to do anything, anyway, anyhow to get her way. Or maybe, Walt thought here, she was financially supporting herself and her child while the dad was MIA. Evan chimes in. She had maxed out 2 of my mom's credit cards after my mom had been dead for over a year. And then there's Bobby, with his trademark blend of drama and overreach. She opened up credit cards in my dad's name, my grandpa's name. ran up crazy bills. Supposedly, America's Most Wanted was looking for this girl. That's so Diddy's mugshot and criminal records. Somebody please rein this nephew in before the next tall tale involves a high speed boat chase and the FBI. Christy Blanchard never wanted to miss a swing as there was an active warrant out for her arrest in Lafourche Parish for writing bad checks. Because clearly 17 stab wounds weren't punishment enough. For the record, while Deedee's check fraud isn't admirable, we still rank aggravated burglary and carrying an unlicensed firearm as more serious offenses, not naming names, of course, Bob, just saying. And speaking of Christy, she seemed to have a running commentary on Deedee's every breath. One day, perhaps she'll grace us with a reason Rod thought he was headed for juvenile detention in high school. Or better yet, a list of Rod's DOCs so we can understand exactly what Deedee might have been fleeing. Was it MJ? Anyways, I'm going to skip that part. A friend of Claude, Deedee's sister, recently went live on social media to reveal, according to Claudia, Deedee did not start conning or scamming until she met Rod. The same friend claimed Rod's father had been arrested for burglary and robbery. We've seen the record is colorful. This is what happens when you polish your halo while planting a crown of thorns on someone else. Eventually, the halo slips, the truth crawls out, and people start asking questions you didn't want them to. If ever a picture painted 1,000 words, it's the one of Deedee, Gypsy, and Rod together. This is not your standard separated couple snapshot, unless it's perfectly normal for your ex to gently caress your ear while you sit back looking like you've just been handed a winning lottery ticket. If you didn't know the backstory, you could mistake it for a portrait of a young, committed, loving family. In 2024, Gypsy indirectly, but very directly, addressed the online chatter about this photo in one of two steaming piles of literature she sanctioned, co-authored by Melissa Moore, better known as the daughter of Happy Face Unaliver. One of the hundreds of Deedee's photographs scooped up by Rod and Christie after Deedee's death. This one this was one of the few personally chosen for inclusion of the book, Conversations on the Eve of Freedom, or more accurately, weekly prison calls over 5 years, and emails. We'll call that choice damage limitation. Gypsy suggests Christie took the photo. Coming from a known liar, that only made the fire burn brighter. Lie or not, Deedee was undeniably attractive in her younger years. Maybe Rod gave the relationship another go, and another, and another, and another. Gypsy's 2024 selected memory memoir, My Time to Stand, that couldn't keep it in his pants, Rod told her he only slept with Deedee 3 times. Please, we've seen the photos of young Deedee. She was a firecracker. We cannot imagine Randy Rod rolling over with a not tonight Josephine. Gypsy also claims Deedee and Rod divorced in 1992. Court documents say in 1994. According to one of Gypsy's prison emails, Deedee found love again when Gypsy was 5 with a man named Mark, who even fixed up a room for them in his house. But Gypsy didn't like Mark because he wasn't Rod, so she spat on him. And that was the end of that. Perfectly normal behavior for a 5-year-old, right? As far as we know, Deedee never had another romantic partner for the rest of her life. Even at 5, the daddy issues had already pulled into the station before boarding the train, firmly embodied in their owner 18 years later. And here's her email where she said this. The faded memory when she was 5. Mom had a friend named Mark. He liked her. Fixed a room for a place. I didn't like him. I spat on him. I only wanted my dad and my mom to get back together. And there is so much more to this. Y'all, that is just one timeline. That is 1991 to 2000, 2025. There's more that we will go over in the coming days. I'm going to continue to cover all of this because there's the timelines of all the way from 1991 to mid 2015. So we'll keep covering it. Make sure you follow me. Bye, everyone.